For the most part, nuclear power has a great potential. The fuel is available in abundant quantities here in the United States. It doesn't produce any greenhouse gases. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is the technology has failed a couple times in the past and still has the potential to fail in the future. So if we look at some of those incidents, some of the accidents that have occurred, if we go back to the oldest, 3 Mile Island. Now that happened in the United States, and what happened here was a 50% meltdown in Pennsylvania, where one of the reactor cores started meltdown, but it was still contained, and it took 12 years and $1 billion to repair before it reopened. And then we go to Chernobyl, which some of you hopefully have heard of, which happened in 1986 when I was just 1 year old. This happened in Ukraine. One of the two explosions ripped a nuclear reactor apart and expelling large quantities of radioactive material into the atmosphere. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the extent of the damage of Chernobyl. And then there's Fukushima Daiichi. And this happened just over a year ago in Japan. And remember the earthquake that happened in Japan that caused a tsunami that triggered power outages and slammed into Japan, knocking out electricity, and the condensers couldn't get cool water to the reactor core of this nuclear power plant. And then that caused an explosion, releasing nuclear material into the atmosphere as well. So if we look more in detail at Chernobyl, which is by far one of the worst nuclear disasters in the past, 116 people had to be immediately evacuated with a 19-mile radius. 19-mile radius. I mean, think about that. If you were at Freedom High School and we went 19 miles in any north, south, or east direction, let's say we went north, where do you think we would be? Yeah, we'd be past downtown Orlando. We would be on our way to Daytona Beach, and that is only half of the circle that they had to evacuate. 170,000 people were permanently abandoned from their homes. In 1990, Ukraine health minister said that the death toll was nearly 170,000. Nearly 400,000 adults and more than 1 million children currently receive government aid for health problems related to Chernobyl. There's been an increase in frequency in birth defects and mental retardation in newborns that has been documented. Breast and mainly thyroid and stomach and other organ cancers are not expected to appear in large numbers until 20 years or more after the incident, which actually has passed, as our book is a little old, but 20 years happened in 2006. But thyroid cancer is a huge thing, with those 400,000 individuals and 1 million children receive aid for. So if you see up in the upper left, this is Chernobyl from an aerial footage. This is where one of the reactor chambers exploded. This is due to human error, individuals not knowing how to contain a runaway nuclear fission reaction. They ended up having to put a big tomb on top of this called the sarcophagus. When the explosion happened here in Chernobyl, as it expelled radioactive debris into the air, wind patterns took it all over Eastern and Western Europe, where some of these other countries still have a lot of the cancer problems because of radioactive material from Chernobyl. See here, these individuals have had their thyroids removed because of the cancer, which is very common, thyroid problems of individuals that live in Ukraine. And here is Chernobyl, with you can see the reactor in the background, where no one lives in this abandoned city because of how high the nuclear or radioactive material concentration still is within the soil and dust particles in the air. So looking at Fukushima Daiichi in Japan, here was the power plant. We've got our reactor chambers here. You can see the explosion here, which we'll watch a video on. You can see the exploded chambers all because of loss of power that couldn't get cool water to the chamber, so the temperatures just ran away. A lot of individuals were scanned for radioactive material, and then wind patterns carried a lot of that radioactive material, even all the way over to the United States. But luckily, the main radioactive material was iodine, and iodine has a half-life of only 8 days. So by the time that it got over to the U.S. or expelled through the air here, a lot of that material had already decayed. Another main problem is, what do we do with the nuclear stuff, or the spent material, the waste? What do we do with that? Since it's radioactive for thousands and thousands of years, where do we store this stuff? So low-level radioactive waste that can come from glassware, tools, paper, clothing, which can be produced in nuclear power plants, research facilities, and hospitals. Some of it is just buried in open pits, where high-level waste has to be controlled more. This is the stuff that lasts for long periods of time. And this is produced in nuclear fission plants. Some of it is stored on site for about 50 years, and then from there they have to transfer it other places, which we'll watch a Bill Nye looking more at storing nuclear waste and doing a debate on Yucca Mountain. So there it is, Chapter 11, Nuclear Energy.